Greetings and welcome to today's educational program, First Global Assessment on the Current State of Organizational Excellence. This is Kurt Stuke with ASQ's Quality Management Division, joining the program today from Kentucky, New Hampshire. Today's program is being recorded. Any views expressed in this webinar are for general educational purposes only and do not represent any official views or positions of the sponsoring or presenters' organizations. A video recording link of today's program will be available online later via our website. You should receive an email 24 hours after the webinar documenting your recertification units for attending this event. We look forward to your great comments and questions during the program, and we invite you to please shut off your cell phone, close the door, warm up your fingers, and give us your great input. When you have a comment or a question, please use the chat. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Dawn Ringrose. Please join me in welcoming her. Dawn Ringrose has consulted in management in areas that positively contribute to organizational performance since 1984. A wide range of academic qualifications, professional certifications, and practical experience have contributed to her subject matter expertise in organizational excellence. She has worked across sectors with different size organizations to improve performance, and several of these organizations have earned National Excellence Awards. With a strong desire to transfer what she has learned to others, Dawn has developed a turnkey toolkit that is designed to make the excellence journey more simple, straightforward, time-efficient, and cost-effective. She was pleased to lead the first global assessment on the current state of organizational excellence that was launched by the Organizational Excellence Technical Committee, QMD-ASQ, and supported by the Global Benchmarking Network, International Academy for Quality, ISO Technical Committee 176, and over 400 researchers around the world. Dawn owns and operates Organizational Excellence Specialists Incorporated in Canada and currently serves on the board of the Global Benchmarking Network, the executive team of the Organizational Excellence Technical Committee, QMD-ASQ, and as chair of the Leadership Content Management Committee at QMD-ASQ. She has presented her work at international conferences and published in international management journals, Springer Emerald, and peer-reviewed newsletters, Global Benchmarking Network, Business Process Improvement Resource, Center for Organizational Excellence Research, Quality Management Forum, South African Quality Institute. And so, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Dawn Ringrose. Dawn, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction. I'm pleased to be speaking with you today about the first global assessment on the current state of organizational excellence. This has been a study that's been a real labor of love for me over the last 5 years, and I've been, working away at it and continuing to work at it, and I'm really pleased to be able to share some of the results with everybody today. So I'm just going to give you an overview of the study and how we managed to capture the current state around the world of the culture of excellence, and also the extent to which organizations had deployed best management practices. And this study has given us a good snapshot by organization size, industry sector, and region of the world to date. And of course, we need to continue the study so that we get even better detail and are able to produce annual reports and more detailed country reports. But as you listen and learn about the results, think about how you can work with these entities to help them measure up, help them compare with other organizations, to build on strengths, to address their opportunities for improvement, and to strive for better performance. Let me take you back about 5 years ago. This study was launched by the Organizational Excellence Technical Committee. I'm on the executive team, and we were talking amongst us about having a team project of some sort. And it was suggested that we use the model that I had developed at my end and the automated assessment tool that was provided by one of our partners to do a study, to do some research together. And so off we went. And I was fortunate enough to entice other players to be involved with us as well, and they provided their moral support. And that was the Global Benchmarking Network, the ISO Technical Committee 176 here in Canada that oversees ISO 9001, the International Academy for Quality, and who I call my rock stars, because without the core and support research professionals, I don't think we would have ended up with the kind of data that we've got today. And there's about 25 of these professionals. They're the core group that were, with me for most of the study, and they're captured on my website. But behind the scenes, there's about 400 to 450 support researchers that agreed to reach out to their networks and invite a number of organizations from around the world in participating in this study as well. And it was through their efforts that we really got a good mix of respondents that allowed us to then report on our findings. And I didn't see the data changing too much, in the last 6 months. And so I thought to myself, well, this is a good sample size. This is a picture of the excellence model that I've developed. It's a model that integrates the leading global excellence models that were first created back in about 1990 or so. And along with this is this automated assessment and reporting tool that allows us to collect the data and aggregate it and report on it. It just saves an awful lot of time. And the nice thing about the model is that it's not affiliated with any award program, and it's really intended to support any quality or excellence approach, tool, or technique. So it's meant to be beneficial to everyone. And a really unique feature of this model is that it not only defines the principles and best management practices that are common to high-performing organizations, but it provides implementation guidelines. And this has been a gap in the literature for a long, long time. And so it's a great resource for those of us who work in the quality and excellence field. And you're welcome to download it. It's on the homepage of the website. I want it to be there for others to use and benefit by it. Now, inside this publication are these definitions of all these principles that describe the culture of an organization that's very committed to excellence. And the 9 principles are listed on the screen, and there's an appendix in the publication, Appendix 2, that defines these principles in much more detail and also highlights the relationships that they have to all of the best management practices in the model. And all the best management practices are included in these 9 key management areas. And there's 102 practices in total, which sounds like a lot, but these are practices that are applicable to small, medium, and large-size organizations, and that they've been validated by 25 years of research. So we know they work. They're tried and true. Now, if you have a micro-size organization with between 1 and 25 employees, not all these practices apply. About half of them apply, or 51. And I think that this publication in a lot of ways is a real gift, It tells you what works and what contributes to high performance, and it also tells you how to implement the practices. So regardless of what you're doing, Lean, Six Sigma, ISO, various excellence models, it's meant to be something that is a valuable resource. Now, the data that was collected on this study was collected by role or 4 positions in the organization: leadership, management, staff, and other. And the other category were people such as board members. 4 sizes of organization, and this is based on the number of employees: micro, small, medium, and large. 3 types of organizations: government, business, and nonprofit. We asked for up to 3 respondents per organization, and we asked for leadership and management primarily, but we also got some interested staff, which is just fine. The nice thing about this study is that all these respondents had differing levels of awareness about organizational excellence. And so we were gathering information from a wide range of organizations that sat along that continuum of not knowing anything about excellence models right through to those that were very sophisticated. The 21 industry sectors and their subsectors were defined by the International Standard Industrial Classification, and the 218 countries that we have around the world were collapsed into 7 regions using the World Bank grouping. So what we ended up with was some ratings that these organizations gave themselves in terms of a self-assessment on the extent to which they had a culture committed to excellence or had deployed the best management practices. And when they did enter the number of employees in their organization or choose the size, the assessment tool automatically defaulted to the larger size full assessment or the smaller size assessment, based on organization size. So that was really handy. Now, the aggregate results were shared, as we were doing the study on the open LinkedIn site for the Organizational Excellence Technical Committee, provided a number of interim reports, and then finally published the final report in April 2019. We also shared updates in the BPIR news that some of you might know about. It's a wonderful newsletter that comes out of New Zealand, and also with the Global Benchmarking Network. And we had an opportunity to present at a number of international conferences. And either myself or there were some key people in our group that were at these conferences and were able to share what we were doing, which was lovely, so we could spread the word around the world. And as I said earlier, the intent here was really to benefit all stakeholders. The objectives related to doing this study were really to fill a gap in really the literature for the excellence community, because a study like this had never been done before. We had never captured, well, what is the current state in most organizations? And it was really meant to complement wonderful information that's been collected over time about these high-performing organizations or these National Excellence Award winners at the other end of the scale. So we had a way for organizations to see how they measured up, how they compared to others in general, and who they might strive to be like at some point in the future in terms of high-performing organizations. And this was a wonderful study, we thought, because it really served to unite the excellence of the quality profession on a common project. And it served to educate organizations about excellence models and invite them to use an excellence model to help improve the performance in their organization. And then, of course, it gave us these great dashboard results that would be beneficial to all of us. And the thinking was that if more organizations use excellence models to improve their performance, they're going to perform better, contribute to their local economy, participate more in trade, and this all trickles down into resident quality of life. In a lot of ways, in the longer term, this helps to make the world a better place for future generations, because we're giving everybody a chance to participate more in the global economy. So this was the participation we had on the teaser assessment, and the teaser assessment was just asking organizations to self-assess against the 9 principles or their culture. To what degree did they have a culture committed to excellence? And we had 791 respondents to this assessment, and it only took them about 5 minutes to fill it out. But they represented the 21 industry sectors and the 7 regions, which was fantastic. Most of them were engaged in leadership and management roles. A lot were involved with the business sector, followed by government and nonprofit. And quite a number were working with micro-sized organizations, followed by large, medium, and small size. And here's the results. This is a snapshot of the culture of excellence around the world. It uses a 10-point scale and a rather subjective scale that measures the extent to which the principle is present in the organization. It's that gut feel that organizations have about the degree to which this is in place. And we use this kind of low, medium, high sort of scale for them to subjectively provide a rating. And the highest rated principles were focus on the customer and leadership involvement. And at the other end of the scale, the lowest rated principles were prevention-based process management and data-based decision-making. Now, I had done a webinar presentation back on January 13th, and the recording should be available for that. And I delved into this particular part of the assessment in a fair bit of detail. So I'm not going to reiterate that here because I want to move on to the larger assessment and give you a real good feel for what's going on across the key management areas in the full assessment. But some of the observations from this teaser assessment, or a look at the culture of excellence in organizations, were that leadership had a tendency to rate the principles more positively, as did micro-sized organizations and businesses, and service as compared to manufacturing. And the professional, scientific, technical sector was a group that rated, the highest on their culture as compared to other industry sectors. And the East Asia and Pacific region of the world, again, had higher ratings. Highest rated principles, once again, leadership involvement and focus on the customer, and the lowest rated, that prevention-based process management and database decision-making. And those lower rated principles, I would suggest that this is an area that a lot of ASQ members could help because we've got tremendous knowledge and skills and tools to assist in that regard. Here's a memorable comment that one of the respondents provided that had done this teaser assessment. And they were just pointing out how beneficial doing an assessment like this was. And they said it really pointed out to them just how they seem to be quite adrift at the moment, and it was perhaps giving them a bit of an idea as to why. And another could really see that by taking a look at what's common to high-performing organizations and striving towards it, that this was a way to build a good business that would develop and grow and provide a legacy for their family, their grandkids. Now, turning to the full assessment, and this is where we have respondents weighing in and self-assessing in greater detail about their management system, all those best management practices across the 9 key management areas. And this particular part of the study, this is where we're using a much more objective scale. And when they're rating each of these best management practices, they're thinking about, do we have a systemic approach that runs throughout the organization? To what degree has this been deployed? Is this process understood? What's our focus? Is it on correction, prevention, or continuous improvement? So what kind of mindset do we have? And there were much fewer respondents, of course, to this full assessment because likely due to the time it took, as it takes up, between 15 and 30 minutes, depending on the size of your organization. And also, there wasn't really an incentive to do it outside of waiting for the final report or downloading the publication. Whereas on the teaser assessment that I've spoken about earlier, you automatically received a feedback report to your inbox, which is very valuable because it gives you a report back on how you're doing on those principles, and for the low-rated ones, it points you in the direction of what you might want to look at in order to improve the low ratings. So in this one, we had pretty good participation, but we need to do a little bit more work in getting more respondents in. The 238 respondents that we had represented 18 industry sectors and the 7 regions of the world. And again, most of them were management and leadership and in the business sector, followed by nonprofit and government. And they were micro-sized organizations, followed by large, medium, and small size. And here's a look at overall, just at a high level, of the results on the key management areas. And number one, look how those ratings dropped. You know, from assessing the culture of excellence in the organization to all of a sudden taking a deeper dive down into all the best management practices. This is kind of where the rubber hits the road. All of a sudden, you know, people are self-assessing their organizations and they're thinking, well, gee, you know, ratings are a little bit lower here. And so what we'll do is we'll, in a few minutes, go into each of these key management areas in a little bit more detail to see what's going well and what needs to improve. But for now, you can see that the highest rated areas were governance and customers. And that's followed quite closely by leadership and performance measurement for the organization. But the lowest rated areas were suppliers and partners and resource management. Most of these ratings are, you know, you're sitting between, you know, 4.6 and 5.6. So they're close, but there's more work that needs to be done. Because we're not getting into having a really stable management system until you hit that 5 mark and over. And if you're hitting the 6 on all of these key management areas, this is where you're tending towards being quite a high-performing organization and a contender for, you know, a National Excellence Award, just to put that in perspective for you. So governance was the highest rated key management area overall. And it was good to see that the highest rated practice was that the governance system met obligations, things like ethics, legal, financial, reporting obligations. And all the practices in this area were rated above 5. So organizations reported that they were doing quite well. In fact, one of the organizations had said, and this is a quote, "We're privately owned, but third-party audited and have been audited by the government with no issues." So that's an indication that they're doing well in this area. Now, on the leadership key management areas, you see there's quite a few more practices here. There's 15 in total, and the overall rating for this area was 5.2. The highest rated practices were develop corporate statements, ensures senior management demonstrates a commitment to continual improvement. Other practices that were quite high rated were those that related to developing teamwork and showing responsibility to society, which is great. But the lowest rated practice was removing barriers to organizational effectiveness. And so this kind of poses that question, well, what's getting in the way? You know, what are some of the dumbest things we do, you know, that we need to stop doing? And there was one respondent that commented about an opportunity in this area. And they said, education, education, education. Or if you prefer, re-education. We must empower human beings. We must empower human potential. You know, so they realized how important it was to be sharing responsibility throughout the organization in empowering the people doing the work. The planning area was one of the lowest rated areas with an overall average score of 4.7. And this is where, you know, we're talking about business planning. And the highest rated practice was using factual information to provide input to the business planning process. But the lowest rated practices were future-oriented practices, such as developing contingency plans for unforeseen events and conducting a capability gap analysis for resources. And some of the respondent comments in this area really showed the two extremes. You know, on one hand, you've got an organization that's reporting quite positively. They're saying, great business planning process. We review every day, 90 days, and make changes if we need it. The other end of the scale, somebody said, I don't know that there is a business plan. I don't know that there are good measures for success, or even what the objectives are. In the customers key management area, this area received an overall rating of 5.4. So, you know, organizations are doing quite well in this respect. And the highest rated practices were communicate the value of products and services to a customer and align employees on the importance of the customer. But the lowest rate practices were using research to define and segment, who the customers are, and training employees to be advocates for the customer. And once again, there was a respondent that really showed, a lot of strength in this area when they said, "We are a committed, even zealous team of leaders with full commitment to customer value. We are all empowered to act on behalf of our customer needs, wants, suggestions, and complaints." And then on the other end of the scale, there was a respondent that said, "We don't put the customer first above all else. We sometimes treat them like an interruption." So, two very differing levels of sophistication there in those organizations. And, once again, doing an assessment like this to figure out how you measure up, it really shows where you're doing well, where you need to improve. The employees key management area, but 12 practices in this area. And you can see that the ratings are tending to be a little bit lower, overall average rating of 4.9. And the highest rated practices in this area were encouraging employees to share ideas and suggestions, and ensuring you have a healthy workplace environment and you're involving people to address issues related to health and wellness. So that's really good news. Lowest rated practice was encouraging employees to be innovative and take risks. And of course, these are calculated or educated risks. They're not risks that have hazards associated with them. But interesting because of the focus on innovation these days. And this is the lowest rated practice. It was encouraging to hear one respondent speaking about the employees area when they said that over half of all their employees had actually been on improvement events and actively worked in teams to enhance the performance and capabilities of their fellow workers. That's showing a lot of involvement and engagement, so very important to any organization on a quest for excellence. And on the flip side, there was a respondent that said their biggest opportunity in this area was to remove the fear of failure. And so I think that probably resonates with a lot of quality professionals and how important that is. It's okay to make mistakes, and we have to learn from our mistakes, and we have to prevent them from happening again, but part of that is really removing that fear of failure. On the work processes side of things, this was again, a lower rated area with an overall average rating of 4.7, and the highest rated practices were to take corrective action when problems occur and to design and document key processes. So that's very encouraging. But the lower rated practices were collaborative activities such as involving customer suppliers and partners in designing and analyzing processes and using external data to compare performance to other organizations, or in other words, benchmarking. So in again, taking a look at the respondent comments, there were those that said, we've got a great commitment to documenting our processes and working on analyzing and improving them. But there were some light bulb moments in some of the comments too, where people were saying, oh yes, we need to get more input from suppliers and customers on how we're doing our work, and they could see the benefit in that. On the suppliers and partners key management area, this is one of the lowest rated areas with an overall average rating of 4.6. And the highest rated practice was to select suppliers on the basis of criteria, but the lowest rated practices were collaborative activities, such as involving those suppliers and partners in the development of new products and services or the development of social and environmental standards. And some respondents acknowledged that they had a few very strong suppliers, and they had really worked on win-win relationships with them to grow their organization and their reputation. And on the other end of the scale were those that saying, gee, we need to involve our suppliers more in the planning and the development of what we're doing, another light bulb moment. In the resource management area, again, a lower rated area, overall average rating of 4.6. The highest rated practices were managing the security of resources and managing the maintenance and utilization of assets to improve life cycle performance. And once again, the lower rated practices happen to be those collaborative and future-oriented activities, such as providing appropriate access for stakeholders to relevant knowledge and information, and identifying alternative and emerging technology and the related cost benefit. Also, preparing for resource interruptions. So, on one hand, we get respondents saying that they're effectively stewarding their resources and minimizing any negative impact that they have on their communities. But on the flip side, we're hearing organizations say that, gee, we need to kind of take a closer look at technology and invest in the future as opposed to applying band-aids to aging equipment. And I think a really important comment here, and this relates to innovation and technology, is making sure that you research that technology and make sure that that technology is indeed going to make an improvement before adopting it. When we take a look at the dedication to continuously improving by key management area, this area had an overall average rating of 4.8. And it looks like organizations were doing a good job in the leadership and customers area, but could do a little bit more work in the suppliers and partners and resource management area. Some, again, showing varying levels of sophistication, as we're saying, gee, we've got a culture that mindset that's all about continuous improvement, where respondents were seeming to recognize that they needed to do an awful lot in this area to implement a good system that's oriented towards this continuous improvement mindset and make sure that they had good measures in place and were monitoring. When we take a look at good measures, we take a look at performance measurements by key management area. And there's a variety of measures. These are all included in the ninth chapter of the Organizational Excellence Framework publication. They're good measures to use if you're going to choose a handful, because it allows you to compare to the performance of others. But as we took a look at organizations, they seem to have a pretty balanced system of measurement, and most ratings were in the range of 4.4 to 5.0. And the highest rated area was customer measures, which isn't surprising. But again, the lower rated areas were supplier and partner and resource management measures, so a little bit more work that needs to be done there. Now, it's important to note that micro-sized organizations don't really measure across the key management areas. They really just have 4 measures that they need to be keeping an eye on. And when we're asking about performance measurement for the organization overall, and there's 12 different measures here, that micro-sized organizations are, wise to be taking a look at measuring the quality of their product or service, customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, and financial performance. They've got little stars behind them because that indicates that they're relevant for micro-sized organizations. But larger size organizations should have a nice balanced system of measurement across the key management areas and these overall organizational measures as well. So they've got 6 or 8 measures that they're using at the end of the day that are really giving them robust feedback on how they're doing. So when we took a look at the performance measurement for the organization as a whole, it was really good to see that quality of product or service, the customer satisfaction, and the financial performance were more highly rated. But it was a little discouraging to see that the lowest rated measure from all respondents was employee satisfaction. And that's pretty important, employee satisfaction, because it's really where the rubber hits the road. It's employees are those people that are really responsible for excellence or quality or making it all happen in an organization. So we'd be wise to be paying attention to this measure. And there was one respondent comment that kind of attracted my attention, and they said, in our organization, there was a real opportunity because they've got this ongoing assessment of performance in a financial and inventory control context, but they weren't measuring in these other ways. And I must say that the emphasis on financial measurement is really quite typical across organizations, and it's unfortunate that we lose sight of how important a balanced system of measurement is, and how a balanced system of measurement is really going to give us some good feedback about how the organization is performing overall, and really direct us to where we need to focus our effort on improvement. So some observations on the full assessment is that, again, these principles were rated much higher than the key management areas. Highest rated areas were governance and customers, and the lowest rated areas were the suppliers and partners and resource management areas. And we had higher ratings provided by the leadership role, small size organizations, nonprofit organizations and businesses, and also by the professional, scientific, technical industry sector. And again, the most commonly used measures seem to be these three measures for quality, customer satisfaction, and financial, but we seem to be missing employee satisfaction, which is quite critical. Overall, there's an opportunity to strengthen empowering practices, future-oriented practices, and collaborative practices. And so this is a big takeaway, I think, as we were doing this study, you know, about where we're doing well and where we need to do a little bit more work. And here's just a couple of memorable comments from some of the respondents. Really, I think, giving us good feedback that they appreciated this assessment and this opportunity to do a self-assessment against their organization. And they really acknowledged that it was very thorough and that they're eager to see the results and probably to compare themselves with others. And of course, that they sense themselves that there's opportunities for improvement for their own organization. And another comment about it being a really good self-assessment, and it allowed them to take a step back and look at performance in various elements. So in closing, there's a great opportunity here for the excellence community and the quality community to leverage the results. I think this gives us a better snapshot of what the current state is around the world. You know, where our strengths are, where we need to improve, what's going on by size, industry sector, and region of the world. We've got some high responding countries, and we're starting to do snapshots for those countries, so that provides an added level of detail for us and good feedback for all of us. But this gives us and the working population at large really some meaningful insights, and that can add value for everybody. It gives us a little bit of direction. How can we all aspire to be more high performing? And I think the studies reinforce that the study's been well received, and there's demand for assessment and follow-on work. There's interest in this. So I might ask, well, what's next for your organization? Have you done the assessment? Have you got a handle on your current state, and can you understand how you measure up or compare to others? Once you do that, you know, you can roll up your sleeves and address those low-rated principles and practices and work towards better results. And then we've got some great information around the world about high-performing organizations from the National Excellence Award programs, and so we can capitalize on that and look what and better understand what it takes to be high-performing, learn from them, and aspire to being high-performing ourselves. And really, it's all about the formula for success, I think. It's what we know is tried and true. You know, you implement the best management practices of high-performing organizations, you develop a culture committed to excellence, and you achieve exceptional results across a balanced system of measurement. It's formulaic, it's tried and true, and it's something that's really available to all of us in our work with organizations. And the work I've been doing in my company and with this assessment, it's all about trying to make this easier for organizations, for developing tools and sharing tools and collaborating with others. And so we can all be part of this formula for success and making it work for the organizations that we work with. So with that, I'll thank you very much for your kind attention. And I will turn on the chat box here to see what kind of questions that we've got and answer questions that you might have. I'll wait maybe for the host to organize some questions for me and provide them in the chat box so I'm able to answer them for you.
So Dawn has 2 questions that I've forwarded, and hopefully
there is
she'll be able
one question here about the survey questionnaires for the teaser and full assessment. They are available at my website under the tab called Global OE Index. And there you'll find the survey instruments. You get a chance to participate in the teaser or the full assessment, which I would encourage you to do. And then you get, on that same page, there's access to the final report for this study. You can download it at no charge. And there's some of the snapshots that we've developed so far for countries, high responding countries. So far we've got Canada, Greece, Tanzania, and India. And there's more on the way. And so stay tuned to see the results for your country if you happen to be a high responding one. But this is, by responding to this and by helping us with the index, this is how we get to release these reports too, is we've got enough data and information to share. We'll certainly be pleased to do that. There is a question here too about the 9 categories and I think this is the 9 categories of the Organizational Excellence Framework. Both the 9 principles and the 9 key management areas are described in detail in the publication. All the principles, all the best management practices are all defined, and those definitions come from our leading excellence models. And the new thing, I think, in this model is that we're providing implementation guidelines. So we're taking what we know in excellence with how we implement it in management consulting, and some quality professionals as well. So we've got this wonderful reference for everybody that will help them do their work and in working with organizations to improve their performance. And there's appendices in the publication that show where these practices and principles are covered in the various excellence models, what's applicable to a micro-size versus a larger size organization, high-level overview of the self-assessment and improvement planning process. So there's a lot of really great information. There's 240 pages of it. So it's available to you to take it at full advantage of it. Okay, so what is the difference between encouraging employees to share ideas versus encouraging employees to be innovative? I think when I think about encouraging employees to share, ideas and suggestions, I think back to a book that was published back in the 60s, and this was a great book about ideas are free, And it spoke about, and I think it's still really relevant today, it talked about how we can encourage people in the organization who are doing the work to provide suggestions and ideas on how to improve the work. I mean, that's 90% of where our improvement opportunities are going to come from, is the people doing the work. And so we've got to put it all in place so that it's easy for them to do that and follow through on it. And encouraging employees to be innovative is a little bit different, because being innovative is being creative, it's thinking out of the box, it's brainstorming and how can we do our work better, and maybe it's using emerging technologies that's going to make a difference. So it's a little bit different, but I think the two are similar, and they are separate practices in the model. And to dive down deeper into them, you're probably going to use a different methodology, but they're both very important. Different but important. This isn't a model from ASQ, but you know, I'm an ASQ member and a member leader, and I've done this for the benefit of the quality and excellence professionals. So the formal name of the publication is Organizational Excellence Framework. It was published in 2010. It has been updated, and it will continue to be updated because, true to quality, there's always this commitment to continual improvement. And so I'm always looking at making sure that we keep pace with what's going on around the world and that we update it as required. And one thing I can say about the 240-page you know, publication is this is something that really we should all know about. Number one, helps us do our work better. But it allows you to take a look at how we implement all of these practices in a general way. And it still allows room for our areas of specialty, because in some of these practices, we're able to dive down really deep into our areas of specialty to help even more. And so then we can bring forth our areas of specialty and really shine there too. You know, a good example of that is if your work, you know, one of the practices is on improving work processes. Well, we can do that in a general way that's described in the publication. And there's reference to things like Six Sigma, but we don't cover all of Six Sigma. That's where you can dive down deeper and really shine, you know, in terms of bringing that talent to an organization as well. So, and that's just building on that too. The publication is available on the homepage of the website. Download it, and you're free to use it as a good reference. The tools that I have on the website as well, you're welcome to use them. There's the teaser assessment there. There's the full assessment. The teaser assessment automatically delivers a free feedback report. The full assessment does not, but there is a place on the website where you can get a full feedback report at a very reasonable price, and that captures your ratings, your open-ended comments, and then it produces individual action plans that you can undertake to address all of your low-rated best management practices. This is something that used to take us 2 to 3 days to do, you know, years ago. Until we worked with a technological partner to automate it. And now it takes those 2 days of work and it comes off the system in minutes. And it's something that, you know, a leader in an organization can do or a quality manager can do, but it's also something where we can invite all the employees in an organization to participate, and it, you know, keeps their responses confidential, but we can aggregate the ratings, we can aggregate all the open-ended comments, we get a really robust feedback on the organization, identifying all sorts of quick wins, charts the way forward in terms of the action plans and things that they need to do to strengthen and improve the performance of their organization. And so that sort of thing is really like gold in the hands of a quality professional. How do I define high-performing organizations? That's a great question. I really go to that formula for success, you know, because this is what I found, and not only all the research I've read, and you know, I've been working in this area since 1990, and with all the organizations I've worked with across size and sector, it's this formula for success. Do you know? If you implement the best management practices that you find in an excellence model, you will, you know, create a culture that's committed to excellence, and you will go on to achieve exceptional results across a balanced system of measurement. That's what's available with excellence models, and that's why back in 1990, I think, when I literally stumbled upon them, because it seems to be, you know, quite a well-kept secret. We know that only 20% of the working population even knows about excellence models. When I stumbled upon that back in 1990, the stars aligned for me in a lot of ways, because here all this great information was in one place. What we know for organizations, what we need to know in order to help them be high performing. I mean, what a gift. And I was amazed, actually, that I had not learned about this, having done an MBA, having been a certified management consultant, and on, and all the training that you take through those kind of programs, and the work I had been doing in large international consulting firms. This was something I literally stumbled upon. And so I thought to myself, this is what drives me every day to get out of bed and to work as hard as I do on this, is that everybody needs to know about this. It shouldn't be quite such a well-kept secret. And we need to get the word out there so that people will adopt this and use it and strengthen and develop their organizations. And you think about it, if we get enough organizations working in this way, it'll make a difference to an economy, to trade. It'll all trickle down into resident quality of life. So it's, in a much bigger picture, it's pretty impactful when you think about the world community and participating in the global economy. And I might add, in a sustainable manner, because there's a lot of good practices, including in excellence models too, that are oriented towards a triple bottom line, which is pretty important.
Well, thank you, Dawn. I'm going to go ahead and do my scripted goodbye, but I want you to know that Dawn's email is at the bottom of that.
Oh, yes, of course. Links to resources and the presentation will be made available. My pleasure. Thank you very much.
So great job, Dawn. Thank you. And it's time to end today's program. You will receive your RU certificate within 24 hours. And there's Dawn's email. Please feel free. If we haven't answered all of your questions, trust me, it's hard to do. You can go ahead and reach out to Dawn, okay? But we wish you well. Hope that you will stay in touch, won't hold these technological barriers we experienced today against us, and will revisit us in the future. We do have an incredible series coming up, the Watson webinar series. I hope you'll take a peek at our My ASQ page and see what that's about. But goodbye for tonight, and thank you. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and wish you all good night.